the NR Hour Sports Show. This is episode 766. We're alongside with Global Kid Media, Vedant from his show. And then also we're joined by special guest, former NFL linebacker, Brandon Short. He played for the Penn State Nittany Lions also. And really looking forward to this interview. Not only he does stuff on the field, but off the field, he's doing some big things. So we're going to get to all of that and obviously his career. So first of all, Brandon, how are you and your family doing so far during this tough situation? Thank you again for coming on.
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Based here in London, we've been on a strict lockdown. I know that you've heard about the more virulent strain of the virus over here, but just like the rest of the world, I got my vaccine, and we're coming out, and things are looking up. I'm excited to talk a little bit of NFL draft, Penn State Board of Trustees, and all things football.
Yeah, actually, I got my second vaccine yesterday, so I'm all good.
Well done, man. Well done.
So, but
me, I gotta wait a couple of years for me, but hey,
you'll probably get yours in 2030, brother.
hopefully by then the COVID's gone. But I want to ask about, since we're kind of coming up on the draft, and your team's obviously Penn State, legendary career there. What have you told these players coming into this Cleveland draft, unprecedented year, of course, and what advice can you give them on taking that step to the next level where they're gonna spend the majority of their career?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things is the draft day is tremendous. It's the culmination of a dream. Most of these young men have been waiting their entire lives, and their families, they have the backs of their families and their communities are all behind them and supporting them. And it's going to be sort of a great day. But no matter where you're drafted, or even if you're not drafted, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. It's what you do when you get there. You could be a first-round draft pick and have it not work out, or you can be picked up in a sixth round. Like Tom Brady, who was actually my roommate, like when we prepared for the NFL draft, and be the best quarterback of all time. Mm-hmm. So just enjoy it. It's a great experience. It's just your first step, but it matters what you do when you get there.
Yeah. So before we get into more of the draft, I want to talk about your career first. And for you, when did you start getting interested in playing football? And obviously, who did you have any players growing up as a role model?
Oh man, well, I grew up in a tough neighborhood, outside of Pittsburgh area in McKeesport, PA, and the only way I saw people make it out of my environment was the football scholarship. And I grew up, and I used to bleed black and gold. Like everyone around me, the Steelers just permeated everything around us. So basically, I wanted to play football since I was born. Before I can walk, people were tackling me and showing me how to be involved in sports and football. That Greg Lloyd is people I looked up to. Jack Lambert was older, but they always talked about Jack Lambert. LaVon Kirkland, of course, Lawrence Taylor, and I had to got to go off and eventually become a Giant. So those are all people that I looked up to and aspired to be. And basically, I wanted to play football since I could remember speaking. I mean, it's been a dream, and I was blessed to achieve that dream.
Growing up, what else was there? What other sports were you playing? Where did you envision yourself being? Was it with the Steelers?
Well, growing up, I also played basketball. So in my senior year in high school, I was the top player in the state. I won the Player of the Year in the state of Pennsylvania. But we won the state championship in the largest classification of football. But we also were number one in basketball in the largest classification. So we were number one in football and in basketball. Our starting point guard got hurt the night we won the Pittsburgh championships, and we ultimately didn't win it in basketball. But we were a pretty good basketball team as well. And where did I envision myself? Anywhere they would take me. Of course, I dreamed of going to the Steelers. And we'll talk about. I can tell you a story about Bill Cowher a little bit later in the Steelers. But just happy to achieve the dream of being in the NFL, and or I was happy to achieve my dream of being in college first. it was a massive achievement to be recruited and be one of the top recruits, but to do well enough even on my SAT to even get into school. So we had a team that we finished ranked number 5 in the country, and we had 11 Division I players on that team.
Right.
But I was the only one that went straight to a Division I, school and graduated because I was the only guy that passed the SAT.
So so take me back to your recruitment process in high school. How many offers did you have, and what made you choose Penn State? And obviously, another Penn State legend was there, LeVar Harrington too. So.
Yeah, I guess I don't remember how many offers I had. I was the number 1 linebacker in the country, so I could have gone anywhere. I talked to the Lou Holtz, Bobby Bowden, that young Nick Saban when he was at Michigan State. Tom Osborne at Nebraska back then. So I could have gone anywhere. And I chose Penn State because they were the number 1 team in the country at the time. They were pretty good, and they were in my backyard, and they also had the highest graduation rate in any top 25 team. And they had in my mind, the greatest coach of all time was there, Joe Paterno. And when I met him, he valued education a lot, like almost as much or more than he did athletics. And I thought it was a good fit. So they were the number 1 team in the country. They had the highest graduation rate, and I was a linebacker, and they called a place linebacker U. No brainer.
Wow.
On top of that, it's your hometown, right? What are your best memories from playing at Penn State, in front of that crowd and in front of the hometown?
Well, I mean, actually, the hometown for me was Pitt. I was in my youth and ignorance, I was a Pitt fan, and I grew out of that, as I became older and started looking at Penn State. But some of them I had plenty. Like I was on the field, Joe's 300th win, like winning the Fiesta Bowl. I played on the number 1 ranked team in the country for 3 years while I was at Penn State. It started, we lost the 10th game all 3 years. So we started as Sports Illustrated cover number 1, and then we weren't able to finish it. But my best memories are just hanging out with the guys. Like any player someone will tell you their best memory may be winning the Super Bowl or making some play. The reality is that's the interaction with your teammates and spending that time and the banter back and forth, that camaraderie. It's very difficult to find that. And I've been fortunate to have success after football, and it's still, if I could play, I would still be playing. No doubt, I would still be doing it.
So this is a 2-part question. Obviously, what was it like for you playing underneath like a coach like Joe Paterno, the late Joe Paterno, obviously a legend there at Penn State? And the second one, obviously, Tom Brady was your roommate during the draft process. What was it like sacking him during against Michigan?
What was it like? So what people don't realize that Joe Paterno was the winningest coach of all time. Yeah. And he could have won 50 more games easily. Because if you were the best player, the best players never actually didn't play. So you had to go to class. But we had the top graduation rate because if you were in trouble in class, he had like spies that would go to your class and see you were there. And if you didn't go, at the end of practice, he would pull everybody up and say, hey, I want everybody to know that Jones didn't go to his biology class today. He's the best receiver we got, but he's never going to play here unless he goes to class. So he's letting you all down. So that led to people going to class. So it was a unique place, and and sort of the culture that we could have won a lot more, but we were focused on molding young men.
Yeah, you talk about those life lessons. I was talking to Trent Richardson, who's obviously a legend at Alabama, the other day, and he was talking about, the similar legendary coach Saban and how he would make sure that kids had good qualities when they moved on to the next level. Was there any moment, particularly when you accomplished something at the professional level, where you went back and said, this is all because of him over there at Penn State?
Every day, everything that I do. So that there's like I wake up early every day because either you're on time or you're late. There's no such thing as early. That we had to be if a meeting started at 5 o'clock, that it started whenever Joe would walk into the room. So if he walked in at 4:45, that's when the meeting started. So like I'm so aware and respectful of people's time, for that reason. Like you don't take shortcuts. You don't take shortcuts in anything you do. Like we used to walk, we never would walk through the grass. There would be a pathway up to the practice field where there was concrete, and we would literally walk up and over a block, more walking to get to the practice field because there was no walkway to the practice field because we don't take shortcuts. Perseverance, just like athletics in general. There's specific things to Penn State, but just athletics in general is so good for people, men and women, to participate in. I mean, it teaches you to work with people from different races, religions, backgrounds. It doesn't matter where you're from or what race you are or what God you serve. All that matters is everybody's looking in one direction, and you're working together. It teaches you how to deal with failure. There's only certain, if you're trying to accomplish something great, there's the only thing that is for certain is that you will fail. But it's not whether it's whether you get back up. And as long as you get back up, not more than when you're knocked down, just the same amount of times, you're still standing and you still got a shot.
Right.
There's so many lessons that you can take. I mean, learning how to deal with success. People, so that you don't overly take credit for things, and you don't point fingers at people when things go wrong, and all those things have carried with me and led me to do pretty well outside of football.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, take me back to your draft experience. Obviously, you got drafted by the Giants in 2000, round 4, pick 105, and obviously you went through the process with Tom Brady. And what was that like, getting drafted, waiting for your name to get called, and eventually the Giants called your name? And what was that like?
So to that point I mentioned earlier, it's not where you get picked up, it's what you do. Mm-hmm. So I was rated the top middle linebacker coming into the draft, and was All-American Butkus Award finalist. But my draft stock dropped because they viewed me as being an outside linebacker, and they didn't know how I would perform there. So, like, while I was achieved my dream, because my expectation that I was going to be a first-round pick, I was on a defense with the number 1 pick and number 2 pick overall with Courtney Brown, LeVar Arrington. Yeah. I led the team in tackles, and had more sacks than one. Right. So it was tough to try to like juxtapose that, but it was a great experience because I achieved that dream. But when you mentioned about how I would advise people, just enjoy it. It's your expectations are what drive how you feel about something. Mm-hmm. So like John Fox, picked up the phone and said, "Look, it's not." He said exactly, "It's not where you get picked up, is what you do." Because he knew that I dropped. They knew they got a steal. But it was. All that said, it was amazing. I did it. I achieved the dream. I achieved the dream that every little kid wants to do, no matter where you're from. It's somewhere inside somebody thought, oh, the New York Giants select Brandon Short, linebacker, Penn State. It was awesome.
Yeah. Now, first of all, are you going to be at the draft by any chance in Cleveland this year to watch some of your guys?
I am based in London, and if I leave the London proper, I will be in a lockdown for 2 weeks at a hotel. So I think not.
That doesn't sound fun at all. Linebacker projected to go obviously very, very high.
I'm sorry, I missed part of that question. I think it might be the internet connection.
Yeah. What advice?
Shot of you, London internet.
What advice would you give Micah Parsons, who's kind of in that same boat as maybe you were, a top linebacker, obviously projected to go very, very high?
And just enjoy it. There's no, Micah's not dropping that outside of the first round. No way. The man runs faster than Saquon Barkley, just to put that in perspective. And he's arriving to the ball with bad intentions and will separate you from the rock. watching Micah grow at Penn State has been a great joy. Seeing the young man that he's developed into, he graduated in 3 years with a 3.3 grade point average. Mm-hmm. Anybody that gets him they're going to be happy, and the people that don't get him, they're going to regret that they passed on him. And the advice I already told him.
Yeah. So for you, obviously you play for the Giants, Panthers, and Giants again too for a second stint. But for you, I want to ask you about your Giants career. What was it like playing in New York in front of those fans, wearing the blue, and playing, obviously playing at a high level?
Yeah, well, I played at the Panthers, but I started and ended my career with the Giants. And the Panthers are a great org. Matt Rule was down there coaching at the Panthers, who was a linebacker with me while I was at Penn State. He was in a linebacker room with me. Now he's the head coach. See, Jeff Nixon's the running back coach down there. Jeremy Scott's the strength coach. So Penn State connections are strong. But I'm a Giant. There's no doubt about it. I started my career there. I ended my career there, and they have some of the greatest fans in the world. It is the pressure cooker of that fishbowl that you're in when you're in New York. But there's nothing like it. You wouldn't. Somebody that is playing at a high level and wants to be the best wouldn't want anything other than be and to have that level of scrutiny. And when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. But anyway, we're all New York,
I want to ask about playing Pittsburgh while you're in the NFL. What are those games like? Because again, you grew up wanting to be in the, in the Steelers uniform, and now you're playing against them. Were those games especially special?
Yes, for no other reason than it's like when you're dating somebody and they scorn you, there's a thin line. I wanted to beat them so bad because my whole family they were Steeler fans. Right. So I had a daughter a week before my 18th birthday, and she grew up and was brainwashed like I was as well as a youth. And she is such a big Steelers fan that she would come to games, with like Steelers gear on and with like a Giants hat, and say, "Daddy, I want, you to do well, but I want your team to lose." And I was like, you know what? I respect that kid.
So I got to ask you, so looking back at your career, obviously you had over 300 tackles, 9.5 sacks. And so looking back at your career, how grateful are you that you got to play the game you loved and play with the team that you loved? And what was that? How grateful are you to be in this position?
Grateful. I think those stats are a little bit off. I had many more tackles and sacks, but let's revisit that. No, it means a lot. It like one thing that I always wanted to do is to try to sort of leave a bit of a legacy. People that just to make Penn State a little bit better and to try to make an impact on the university and the people that have done so much for me. And, to a certain degree, I feel like from being an All-American there and from I could have gone to the pros my junior year and came back to try to win a national championship, to a degree, and now I'm on the board of trustees there. I feel like that I've done that. And, I want to just try to continue to serve and try to benefit the university. Has done so much for me.
Yeah. So just to follow up, obviously, what's it like seeing a guy like Tom Brady still going at it in Tampa, winning another ring? And have you guys talked recently about your game against each other against Michigan and when you sacked him? Have you guys talked about that?
We played many games against each other after that in the pros too. but I haven't spoken to him in some time. I've been out of the country and I haven't spoken to him in like years. It was sort of a really, really great experience. I can't say enough about it. And, just we lived the dream.
I want to know about you getting your MBA. Obviously, years after your career, you talk about how much you value education. At that point, you've obviously been a role model to kids that's what you need to be like if you're going to be professional, and how you carry yourself. How important was that to you to get that MBA and now to have that?
Well, one of the things that we used to like Joe Paterno used to say, is that you can tell the success of a young man or woman by the ability to see past their nose, see past what's in front of them. And then one day, all football players will be former football players. That's the only thing that's certain. You got to try to use your platform to get where you want to go, to leverage yourself for what you're going to do afterwards. I was fortunate to be drafted by the New York Giants and be associated by being philanthropic, being on boards, serving with people that were financial and political leaders. And, they said you have this great business acumen, but you need that refinement of that secondary education. So when it looks like my career was winding down to an end, I did a year of broadcasting at CBS and studied for the GMAT and did well enough to get into Columbia Business School. Oh. And that it was life altering. Before Columbia, I thought I ended up, working at Goldman Sachs, after Columbia, and I thought banking was making sure you didn't have enough money in your account that it didn't bounce. That was banking. That was what I thought about banking before I got there. Just opened up my mind to so much more. It's critical. It's not necessarily, you don't necessarily need to get an MBA, but all these young people, or not even if you're just playing football, anything, you always have to think about, have a long-term plan and think about how you're going to get there and constantly work on improving. I'm working on getting better today. Either you get better, you get worse, you don't stay the same. So you got to always try to think about how you improve yourself and get better.
Yeah, so now transitioning after your career, obviously you're back at Penn State as a trusted boardie. What's it like being back at your alum, being part of that in a different aspect, and what's that been like for you? What's that experience been like?
So I'm a member of Penn State's Board of Trustees, and it is a huge responsibility.
Right.
But I can honestly say, other than being a father and a husband, it's the most rewarding thing that I do. The decisions that we make at a board level have a direct impact on people's lives, on issues of affordability. Try to help first-year students and second-year students that maybe have financial difficulties, make that adjustment. Mental health. Mental health is like physical health. Everybody has it. You got to work to stay healthy, but seeing the effect on kids' lives. Penn State is, we have $1 billion in research. And we're one of the largest research institutions in the world. There's, national security, questions that come up. So the job is tremendous. I am in an election now running for re-election to Penn State's board, and just trying to encourage people to get out and be a part of the process.
Yeah. So obviously that voting process, how's that going with the voting process, and when do they let you guys know about the re-election thing? How's that process going?
So the voting began on April 10th, and it ends on May 6th, and they give intermittent updates, but they don't let you know how the process is going until the election is over, or you could manipulate the election. Yeah. But there are over 750,000 eligible voters, meaning you have to only have graduated from Penn State and then you're eligible, but less than 15,000 people vote. But 15,000 people, less people are apathetic because they don't care. They don't feel like it matters who's in that seat, but it really does matter. And this year there's a clear choice. There are people that are running that want to de-emphasize athletics and defund athletics. And Penn State has a long history of leveraging athletics to benefit the entire university. Increased applications allows us to have higher academic standards. We're able to recruit more talented faculty and staff. We're able to raise more money, and we're also, able to benefit the local economy. And one of the unique things at Penn State is that our athletic budget is independent of the broader university. So whenever we make those investments, at least under the current structure, it doesn't take away from any other university priority, tuition or teacher salary or research. Yet there's still people that want to de-emphasize it. Michigan, has outspent Penn State by $250 million over the past 10 years, just in their operating budget alone. Ohio State, that number is close to $400 million. That's not counting facilities. So we have a bit of an old school mentality at Penn State, which I share, and I'm old school like Joe Paterno all the way, but we need to evolve in the way that we're thinking or we're going to get left behind.
I wanna transition here to this draft that's coming up. Let's get your predictions for the top 5. How do you think the top 5 picks are gonna go?
I mean, it's kind of tough to say. I can't give a top 5. I mean, you got Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. I think Micah Parsons should be right up there in that top 5 as well. But we need to see how it pans out. It's just the quarterbacks are going to dominate the day, as in most cases, which they should, and the other 3 or 2 or 3 positions are going to fill in based upon need.
So I want to ask you. Obviously, I'm a big Dallas Cowboy fan, and we have the 10th pick in the draft.
I'm so sorry.
I was about to say the same thing.
This, you know what, man? That's all right. Things will get better someday.
Yeah. we had the 10th pick. Obviously, you just brought up Micah Parsons. That he would be great fit in Dallas. But if you were Dallas, what would you do if you had? Obviously, we need more defense help. But if a guy like Penn Sewell's there, if you were like in Dallas position, would you take a guy like Penn Sewell or a defensive guy at that point?
I'd take a defensive guy. Sean Lee, another Penn State great linebacker, just retired today.
Yeah.
And he was not quasi-retired, but he was like a coach and playing for a long time. You're losing a lot. I'm coming back to my guy. I mean, if Micah's there at 10, if he's there, you better take him or you're going to regret it. Right. And we got like another guy that, Jason Allway may not be taken that high, but Jason Allway runs faster than Micah, who runs faster than Saquon Barkley. So there's some people out there that could get picked up. And we also have some other great players in it. Shaka Toney, that he may be around in that second or third round that you should take a look at. He's one of the best pass rushers that has played at Penn State. We got Lamont Wade, in the draft. It was the top cornerback in the country, coming out. I know that Dallas was looking at him. That when I saw them, they were working him out, looking closely at him when they were up for the pro day. And of course, Freiermuth will probably go in the first round as well. Our tight end.
Oh wow.
We talk about Dallas, and then I hate to go lower, but I'm in Michigan, so then you've got Detroit, who they need help as well. What do you do with that 7th pick? A lot of people are saying Jamar Chase if he's available. What are you doing?
I think Chase would be a good pick there. It depends on what happens. If Justin Fields slips, you might want to consider taking a quarterback, but I think Chase would be a good pick there for Detroit. Matt Millen was I put everything revolves around Penn State, was the GM up there for a long time, and he used to take every year he would take a receiver in the first round. I don't know, Matt didn't know how to draft a lineman, but he would take a receiver in the first round. But I think he'd be a good pick for you guys.
Man, speaking of connections, Penn State has a lot of connections when it comes to team scouts, coaches. It's amazing what Penn State has done over the years with all the connections. But obviously, I also want to ask you, do you see any surprise trades happening in this draft? Because there's a big question with the 3rd pick, obviously what the San Francisco 49ers would do. I don't know if I were them, I would pick Justin Fields over Mac Jones. I don't know why. Maybe Mac Jones is a smokescreen over there, so we don't know about that. But do you see any trades happening in the first?
It's tough to tell because I don't have enough detail on what some of the team's needs are. That are a bit lower to really opine. But I think Fields would be a good pick. I don't know, Mac Jones. Well, I don't know. I need to see more. I just being in the conference, I've seen Fields. Fields actually, everything comes back to Penn State. Actually committed to Penn State, and then decommitted and went to Georgia. And then came and played pretty well for them up there for those Buckeyes.
Let me ask about, I always love to ask, who do you think is the most underrated player in this draft who has a high ceiling? Doesn't have to be a first rounder, just someone who maybe won't be the highest pick in the world, but you think could have a really bright future.
Shaka Tony, coming back to my guys. Shaka Tony, he is arguably one of the best pass rushers in the draft. He's first team All Big Ten. Led Penn State in sacks for a few years, and because you have these two freaks running at Penn State with Alway and Michael Parsons, people overlook him. But I think that he's going to play in NFL for 10 years and he's going to be a starter. And anybody that can pick him up in that second, third, or even fourth round are going to be really lucky to get him.
So a couple more things here before we let you go. What would you say your most memorable game that you played in college and the NFL?
Most memorable game was Joe Paterno's 300th win.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big deal around Penn State. And in college, it was Super Bowl 35. When the Giants lost to the Ravens. Like Ray Lewis and that defense they were a bit of a buzzsaw. But that was an amazing experience. It was my rookie year. You went to the Super Bowl. I came from high school where we won the state championship. We're undefeated. Then went to Penn State. We never won a championship, but we were ranked number 1 in the country for 3 years in a row. And then my rookie year, we go to the Giants and go to the Super Bowl. I was just thinking this is just what we do. Never made it back again, but that Super Bowl experience was tremendous. And, it was a blessing to be able to have that and share it with family.
Man, Super Bowl 35 seems a long time ago.
Don't throw any dirt on me yet, man. Come on.
I want to ask about, one of the things I covered a Citrus Bowl a couple years ago, Alabama versus Michigan, and you're obviously a Citrus Bowl game MVP, probably special place in your heart. What do you remember most about that, and how special is that to be the most valuable player of a game like that?
Oh man, when I ended up playing for the Giants, and obviously, and Jesse Palmer was a teammate, and Jesse Palmer was that quarterback for the Florida Gators when we played them, and we just talk a lot of smack. I mean, sacking Jesse Palmer in that game felt good because I bring it up to him every time, kind of like forcing a fumble every time I see him. They had Fred Taylor, and Fred Taylor ran for a bunch of yards on us that game. I think he rushed for like 200 yards. It was really hard to stop that guy. And whenever I see Fred, I was like, listen, man, I think you should, give me 10% of that bonus because, you got that because, you ran all over me and my team. It was a great memory, that Citrus Bowl, but there are plenty of them, not games that I was just MVP. There's so many of them that I can't even, it's hard to choose one, but thank you for reminding me of a great one.
Yeah.
You got to tell Fred to bring you on their I Am Athlete show.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a great show. Fred Taylor, Brendan Marshall, they have a great show.
I need to get on there and talk to him. Yeah, tell Fred that he owes me.
Yeah, so the last 3 things here, obviously you're focused on this board of trustee, but down the line, if the right opportunity presents itself, would you consider being a coach at Penn State or the NFL?
No, my career is in real estate private equity now. Just a quick summary. I went from Penn State to NFL, Columbia Business School, Goldman Sachs in New York, Goldman Sachs in Dubai, and now I do real estate private equity. I'm really far from coaching. I'm in my career is in the financial realm, but I love to go and see and watch them play. And every time I come and watch Penn State play, I don't watch like a fan. I watch like a player. I'm going through the reps in my head. I'm like, there's no laughing. There's no talking. I don't drink any out. There's no celebration. This is the game. It's serious. We're trying to win.
So speaking of stories, do you want to tell us about the Bill Cowher story real quick? The Bill Cowher.
Just there's a thin line between love and hate. I was going to considering coming out in the NFL draft my junior year, and I was projected to be a third-round pick. I was met with Bill Polian, who was the GM of the Colts at the time, and then also talked to Bill Cowher. And both of whom said, if you're still there, and Bill Polian said, if you're still there in the third round, then we're going to take you next year, no doubt about it. But Cowher, when I think during our pro day, we chatted, and he was like, look, we think we want to pick you up in the second round, and if you're still there, this is going into the draft, we're going to take you. And it would have been the culmination of a dream to go to the Steelers. And the second round came and went, and I was still on the board. So that's the beginning of the Cowher story, but that's the premise of the Cowher story. That, man, I really used to love the Steelers, and like I could have told you anything about them, but now that love is transferred to the G-Man, G-Unit.
Yeah. I talked to Coach Cowher for a minute, and it's just cool to hear stories as a whole. Obviously, it's competitive on the field, but it's cool to hear years later how it's still a brotherhood even between competitors. I think that's really cool.
It's always a brotherhood. I mean, you're out there, it's a dangerous game, and you can be hurt at any time. And that it takes a special type of person to even play this game, to run down the field 60 yards and run into another person, and it's tough. And you got to be tough physically and tough mentally. So there's always a mutual respect for anybody that goes out and plays this game, and it's a part of this thing we love called football.
Yeah. So the last two things here, our team is part of the Hugh Jackson Foundation. Obviously, former NFL coach, but he has a coaching job at Tennessee State with Eddie George as offensive coordinator, and we're trying to help them prevent human trafficking and making sure the kids stay safe and the community stay safe. So I'll send you that foundation so you can go check it out. We're really grateful to be part of it. They're doing inspiring things with that foundation. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
Yeah, I'd like to say that we all appreciate all the work that you're doing, nurses, doctors, essential workers. Without you, without you keeping us safe and healthy, we couldn't do what we do. And just want to thank you. Although things maybe get tough, please push through, because we all need you. Thank you.
Well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 766 with former NFL linebacker, Penn State linebacker, Brandon Short. Obviously, now he's part of the Penn State Board of Trustee, waiting for re-election. So good luck on that. But I just want to say thank you again for coming on the show. It was truly an honor, and we learned a lot today. And you keep up the great work, and we would like to have you back as a returning guest so you can meet the full team. But enjoy the draft this week, and let's go.
Thanks a lot, man. It was a pleasure. Be well.
Yeah, stay safe.
Bye.